People of the internet, how did Kyle Kulinski destroy Rogan and the Rogan sphere in one epic rant? Well, that is what we're going to see right meow.
I mean, you guys called Rogan, bro. You've been doing the same patented rants for over a decade now. How many times are you going to tell me about fucking COVID lockdowns, right? How many times are you going to tell me about how shitty wokeness is? How many times are you going to tell me about the, couple hundred comedy assassins that are the only ones doing this beautiful high art? Like, at some point, people are just like, yawn. It used to be back in the day, he would at least have he would have wild conversations. Like, he'd have on somebody who's some like MMA expert. Then he'd have on somebody who's like done every kind of mushroom drug in the world. Then he'd have on somebody who like denied HIV was real. Like, it was all over the fucking place. And so it was like, well, you never knew what was coming. Now you know what's coming. Now, no matter who he invites on, he goes right into his standard rants. And look, it's okay if you're repetitive as long as you're saying things that are true. He's not saying things.
It does seem like,
I always wondered with Joe Rogan, at some point you have enough money, right, to last your lifetime. And I always wonder, because very few people get opportunities like Joe Rogan, which back in its heyday, before all this Spotify, political shit, he had one of those things in society that had the ability to bring people from different cultures, different political beliefs, religious beliefs. He had the ability to bring people together from all, different realms of our land, right? And I mean, that is so cool. If you could think of really cool things to have in life that are just truly awesome, the ability to speak to basically everyone and make a difference in a positive way and bring people together has to be one of the most ultimate achievements in life. And I always thought about Joe Rogan, and I wondered, what was the price tag that you gave that up? Because I would think that would be priceless. And then Rogan's stance, he had enough money. And here's the thing, even if he stayed that way without selling out, he would have made more money. You know why? Because it was that made him, have those episodes that got millions and millions of views. It was that got him that Spotify deal. He would have been richer off if he would have stayed true to how he started out instead of selling out. But instead, he sold out. He lost a massive part of his audience. All his listens and YouTube views are down drastically. And now he went from loved to hated. What a terrible ending to a story. See what happens when you're not true to yourself? Boy, oh boy, it don't end up good.
Joe Rogan is facing a lot of backlash from his audience because he's kind of got himself between a rock and a hard place. Joe Rogan, for the sake of ratings, I think a lot of it was chasing money, but I also think it's Joe Rogan's pathology of being a relentless competitor, of being an achiever, of knowing he has to push it harder and harder and harder because that's how he satisfies his inner drive. He has to be the best, and then he has to maintain his status as the best. And he noticed what was the easiest way for him to keep growing his podcast in the aftermath of the Spotify deal? It was to lurch to the right. And he did that, and he continued to do that. And just the other day, he was licking the penis of the first $1 trillion man in the entire universe. So he's gone as far as he can go. But there are times when he realizes, oh, this isn't good, right? We talked about it on the show. He had Duncan Trussell back on. He was trying to recapture the vibes and the, way it was back in the day when people like us were fans of the Joe Rogan Experience, when normies would tune in and be like, oh, this is a cool guy. He's a comedian. I agree with 60% of what he says, and I disagree with 40%. Most of the time, his guests are cool. Sometimes they're CIA spooks, but sometimes they're base lefties like Abby Martin or Kyle Kulinski. So it has a mixed bag for everybody to get involved with. Now, whenever he expands out of that bubble, whenever it's not a right-wing goon, his right-wing audience starts to melt down. So he's like a snake eating the tail at this point. He can't branch out and go back into the mainstream because his right-wing audience, which are the only people that are keeping him in business. I mean, when you were going on there, what was the average? Like 8 million, 10 million views for a Rogan stream. Now it's 1 million. If it's popping, a lot of them are like 800,000. That is an insane decrease in engagement. I don't care what kind of numbers he's doing on Spotify. So he's also in the find out stage of the fuck around and find out equation. Do you think that that's all part of the same thing that you're talking about? Like there are consequences again?
Here's the thing. I started looking at Joe Rogan's stats like the end of last year and more heavily like beginning of 2025. And he, at that point, he'd lost half. He like his views and his listens have halved, right? I think it was something like 6 million. And I was like, damn, this is bad, right? And people still don't believe it because it's #1 podcast. But you have to understand that Joe Rogan had a huge lead on everybody. Like double, if not 2.5x his closest, below him. And so that's how he stays in the #1 because he's no longer doing exceptionally good, but he's performing at the top doing good. But I don't know how much longer he do that, right? And a lot of people, when I started talking like this, didn't believe it. And I have this saying, right? Because people talk trash in games and they get mad at you because they're doing bad. And, usually when someone's complaining really hard and you look at the stats and you see, oh, they're dying a lot. They're not doing their job. And just a response back says, stats don't lie, people do. And this is the thing. People are trying to say Joe Rogan's #1. He's not losing listeners. All of this to me the whole time I'm saying this, And now that we could see time has passed, the statistics and the stats were correct. And it's only gotten worse. I saw a Joe Rogan video with like 300-some thousand views. It might have gone up since then. But it was a couple of days in and it's like, what? You used to see a Rogan episode get 1 million YouTube hits in a day, at least in the first 2 days. The videos from the bigger YouTube channels making fun of him, they're getting more views than his videos now. Unless Joe Rogan has like a popular guest on, his videos don't go over 1 million, and 1 million is like the most those go. Unless it's like some big political figure or Elon Musk, he brought Elon Musk on to help his numbers for the end of October. Yeah, man, it's crazy. It's crazy how far he's come.
Absolutely. At some point, when you get as big as Rogan got, you start to think like you're bigger than the rules of the game. You start to think that there's something about you that's so special that people will overlook whatever like your negative qualities are. And it's just not true. So first of all, and you're still reading ads for dick pills and shit. I mean, it's just, at some point, it's just unbecoming of a man. Like you're a little fucking whore, And like, the other thing is he's an out of touch, rich MAGA prick. Like that's what he is. Woo. He's just an out of touch, rich MAGA prick. And like, he's still swimming in those waters. No matter how much every now and then he'll try to retreat back to the enlightened centrism bullshit. At the end of the day, he's an out-of-touch, rich MAGA prick. He texts with fucking J.D. Vance, might even text with Donald Trump himself, the big guy himself. We know he has just a fucking streamline of billionaires, one after the other comes up, whether it's Mark Andreessen or Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or whoever the fuck. There's always billionaires that are coming on to lie to his audience about how terrible the CFPB is and how shitty unions are and stuff. And like, in the end, basically his class position won out. Like he's surrounded by billionaires, he's surrounded by MAGA assholes, and like that's the water he swims in now. And so you're never going to see him fully turn on these people ever. It's always going to be a steel man for the people on the right and a straw man for the people on the left. I'm covering tomorrow. He was shitting on Zoran, calling him a communist. Like it's enough already. It's enough already. But to your point, like, yeah, it's over. It's done. Like he's never going to have that same cultural relevance and sway that he had in the past. And what's kind of annoying is that Democrats are always too slow to catch on to what we know. So like back when I was telling everybody, stop yelling at Bernie for going on. Back then he did have cultural relevance and sway and he had a mixed audience. Now you got Democrats who are like, you should go on Joe Rogan. And it's like, no, you fucking shouldn't. He's like fucking Rush Limbaugh now. What's the point? So they're always behind. I need them to go ahead and catch up.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, that's what I think Joe Rogan has turned to. You know, before like the internet took over like music and radio and, you know, the apps where you can listen to whatever. You know, talk radio had, you know, the Democratic pundits and the Republican had theirs. You know, like the ones, it just depended whether your local station was Republican or Democrat, which ones you got. And I grew up in ones that had Republican, and I remember like Mark Levin and Sean Hannity. Those guys, you going through the station, you'd always hear one of them. And I just like, who the fuck listens to this shit? You know, it's just so obviously biased, and you, when I listen to them from either side, I always feel like I'm not getting the facts, and they're just so matter of fact in a mean way, and I can't stand that. And that is how Rogan is getting. He's not challenging ideas, he's not questioning ideas, he's spitting out his beliefs on you like you need to accept them or you're wrong. And I just hate that. There's too many variables in life. People always think there's just like a straight line to everything, but fuck no. Even if I come out my driveway, I got a curve right away. You know? Just how it is. And it's just funny how many things people know about life and themselves, but they just want to deny everything. Denial about corruption, denial. That's what I'm finding out, denial. And you know what's really sad? You know what's really sad is, you know, I'm fairly nihilistic, and I don't believe in humans any longer. I believe in power rules everything, right? I was listening to somebody, and people were saying, eat the rich, right? If the poverty, if most of us are in poverty, we'll just fight back and eat the rich. And the guy was like, nope, it'll never happen. And they're like, why would it never happen? We would overtake them. And he's all, no, because they'd pay half of you to kill the other half. And then it would just continue on from there. So Joe Rogan just reminds me that there is no hope. You know? There's no hope. Because you could always just pay someone off, right?
Zach made a great point about the waning relevance of the Joe Rogan Experience online as far as its view count and as far as the actual podcast episode. But also people have talked a lot about the wane of the actual Austin comedy scene itself and the mothership and people increasingly, you know, giving it a bad reputation because of the hackish material that's basically always on display there at any given moment. So, you know, do you think in an attempt to save the sinking ship, not only his online presence and relevance, but also the whole scene that he kind of founded down there in Austin, do you think Joe Rogan will stoop to the level that so many of his right-wing contemporaries, such as Tucker Carlson, recently have by embracing the likes of Nick Fuentes? I was debating Zach a little bit on the show the other day saying, I don't think that Joe Rogan's going to go that far. You know, as despicable as I find a lot of Rogan's recent output, I genuinely do find it hard to imagine him inviting on Nick Fuentes for like a friendly conversation. And obviously, we all know that Joe Rogan's not capable of having, a tough debate sort of conversation. It would probably be a softball if he was to have Fuentes on. But do you think that's the road he's going to go down? Again, much like Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith and all these other fucking idiots who are supposed to be like populist Republicans, but whose audiences are actually just full of Nazis, which they're more than likely to gratify by having on King Fuentes.
Here's the thing on Nick Fuentes that I'm going to tell you. I'm going to start it off by telling you the point of the whole story. If something is dangerous, believe it. If something is just a little dangerous, believe it. I have learned over life not to mess with dangerous things, dangerous people. Something may seem edgy, something may look cool, something may look sketchy and doable. I mean, if you skated, right? I would like one of the stupidest ones I made later in life is I've snowboarded all over the world, backcountry, filmed everything, right? Big snowboarder, spent most of my 20s snowboarding. I did the parks, the rails, everything. And I was at a local one doing a half day, right? At my local one, you can do half ones for really cheap. And it's about 4 hours, and it has the old school lift that takes a while, but it's fun to rip, right? It's wide. You get good long runs in, and we get there, and the first lift up coming down right at the top, there's just a little kicker. And the snow conditions were really packed and icy. And something inside me just, oh, hit this kicker. And it kind of had a slope, you know. It was going to launch you. And, I was like, I've been snowboarding forever, right? I'm just going to hit it. Even though it looked dangerous, and I wasn't sure. It looked icy, but I in my head, I told myself it wasn't. That thing, as soon as I hit that thing, it was so icy, and it hucked me. Boom, separated my shoulder. So if it looks dangerous, it is, because here's the thing. Nick Fuentes may have some good points, may have some bad points. I don't know. I don't listen to him, but he's dangerous. He's saying dangerous things, just like people on the left say dangerous things, just like people in general say dangerous things, and just like people can be dangerous. If it's got some danger to it, don't do it, because usually if there is danger, you're gonna get hurt in some way, whether it's financially, physically, mentally, emotionally, your career, your reputation. People that live in extremes also live their life in extremes. They're super volatile. They're up and down. They're all over the place. And they always cause chaos. And if you're around chaos, you're bound to get hurt. And so this is why, like, you don't go out there promoting politics, because politics is dangerous. I watch political videos, but they're about the Rogan sphere, and I'll watch one from the left and I'll watch one from the right. I want to watch them all because I'm here for the Rogan gossip, baby. Yes, old ladies, I would hang out with you and talk lots of shit because you know what's up. It's just, and as you get older in your 20s and 30s, you can risk that danger. But as you get older, that danger, you see that danger for what it is, and it ain't worth it. I am content. I have given up that there's any purpose on this earth. I don't believe none of it. None of it makes sense. It all sounds man-made, man-driven, with the ideas of greed and power at the end of the road. But I am content doing the things that I like to do, being around the people that I want to be around, and just kind of staying in the middle of the road. All this being great shit, yeah, strive for things. Try to be the best at what you do. But I think most of the pleasant times, most of the times you cherish the most, are just middle of the road, just doing what you love, being around the people you love. Because, like, the thing that kind of makes sense the most, and it kind of brings you the most joy. So there it is. But I would just say, whether it's left or right, because you can believe what you want to believe on my channel. I don't give a fuck. I don't believe in any politics, so you can believe what you want. I'm not here to change your mind, tell you to stop listening. Do what you got to do. But when you mess with these people, especially in politics, in the extremes, you're going to get extreme things, folks. That's why it's called extreme, because it produces extreme things, and you will get caught in the crosshairs at some point, if not multiple points. Aim for the middle of the road, man. It's best for society survival, and it's best because you have less chaos at making you at the best and reaching the goals that you want to be. People always say you have to live in the extremes. No, but the people that really make it are the people with less chaos and more attention focused on their purpose and their goals, because they're not giving any time to chaos. It's the middle of the road, folks. You've been lied to your whole life. Great lie. Middle of the road.
I mean, you guys called Rogan becoming Christian, like doing the whole, like, oh, I go to church now, that whole bit, right? And at the time when you said that, I was like, I don't know, that's sort of a little bit of a stretch because, you know, he's so openly, I mean, he's been openly agnostic for years, and he's always had like interesting thoughts on that topic because he wasn't tied to any particular dogma or theist perspective, etc. But I mean, now it's almost like because of that, because he was willing to say like, oh, I go to church and yada, yada, all that. It makes me think maybe like he might actually go as far as to have on Nick Fuentes or
I think you will.
with Fuentesism. I think it's very, I wouldn't say it's like.
All right, guys, in the comments, I want you to put your bet. I mean, date's kind of silly. Date's kind of silly, but you can do month and year. Now, here's how it works. That's the month and the year that you think Nick Fuentes will be on. I just put him in the comments because it's going to be crazy. Here's the thing. If Joe Rogan does that, he's going to be in a world of pain. And he's going to be associated with some extreme things, man. And extreme things are dark. That's why they're extreme. If he does that, man, Joe, I think he's scrambling. He has to be scrambling because you know who knows the numbers better than everyone? Joe Rogan, because he has the analytics and he's seen them. We only see what YouTube puts out, blah, blah. We don't know how bad his sales, you know, all the other things that he makes money off are doing too. He didn't get another $200 million Spotify deal for a reason, folks. And that's because it ain't so hot.
Likely, I'd say it's possible because like there's clearly no bottom to the barrel. Like he's already gone so fucking low. What would stop him from going lower? And I think to your point, he's kind of in a no-win situation now because you're right. The Austin comedy scene is like a joke, even among comics. And now there's this like comedy civil war that's happening. And it is viewed as hack. Austin is viewed as hack among real comics where they say, how many times are you going to hit me with a fucking anti-trans joke? Right? How many times are you going to hit me with a fucking anti-homeless joke? It just seems like that's who they are. And I don't know how he gets out of that. I don't know. He can't go back left. The best he could ever muster is going back to enlightened centrist, but everybody still knows what you are, even if you do the enlightened centrist tap dance. They still know you're right wing. Is he going to go?
Here's the thing, Joe can't go forward and he can't go back. He can't go back to what he left, and he obviously doesn't want to go full into what he catered to, right? And here's what's left. Like most rational people can have the ability to leave Joe Rogan when it's gotten to this point and be like, I'm done with that. Yeah, I used to listen to it, but I'm done. But here's the thing. There's a lot of people that got so into Joe Rogan and they attached their identity to it. They went out to the grocery store and bought elk meat so they could, you know, grill their own shit on their fucking Traeger and have a Blue Chew afterwards, you know, to hook up with your wife on that mattress he had a promo code for. You know what I mean? They attach themselves to the hunting. They attach themselves to the political side of Rogan. They attach them to the COVID beliefs. And now what you have is Joe Rogan, the people that are left listening to Joe Rogan in the Rogan sphere, they're the only ones fueling that economy and making them money. They're the ones going to the mothership. And yeah, it could sustain itself for a while. But right now, the only way it's sustaining itself and people aren't worked up is because there is a lot of drama. And these people that attach their identity, the Rogan sphere fans that attach their identity, they're like, you know, dogs backed into the corner. So they're biting. But once this comedy civil war starts to die down, Joe Rogan will slowly still lose people, and it settles, and people got to sit with themselves and they reflect on the Rogan sphere and what it's done and what it's done to them. You're going to see a massive surge of people just because when there's drama, when there's heightened senses, and there's little time to think about the details because you're having to fight back, which is, the comedy civil war right now, there's no reflection and there's no realization. But I believe once everything chills out in this, there's, some kind of conclusion to this shit, that people are going to leave the cult. Most rational people leave it. That's why cults are never massive. That's why they're a small segment of people, because they're full of suckers or weak people in emotional distress, people that have had traumatic things happen, people that are in some form of like a weaker version of themselves. And then if you come in and you give somebody in that state an identity that empowers them, that makes them feel part of a group, that gives them purpose, then you get someone that's loyal and someone you could take advantage of, as Rogan does.
All the way back to the left, I can't see it. So that means he's either going to stay where he is and continue to wane in relevance, or he might end up playing footsies with Fuentesism, which is on the rise, and so try to grasp onto that movement. But at that point, that would be him really sort of conceding defeat, that now I'm going to play second fiddle to this gay Mexican twink in his basement who's goose stepping,
There you go. I always found it funny. I don't watch any of these political shows. As I always said, I'll watch a video from the right or from the left if it's about the Rogan sphere and it's interesting and adds to this great reality series the Rogan sphere is creating for us, right? But I saw Kyle Kulinski probably him right there on his secular talk show a year ago, ranting about Rogan. No, probably 6 months ago. And I'm always surprised by how hard that guy goes in on Rogan. He calls him the worst things. He calls him everything under the sun. The first time I saw him, I was like, yo, and they're hitting me with YouTube content warnings and shit. Yo, what? This guy goes hard. And I was honestly, there was a good one because there was one that was good, but it went so hard and said so many bad things and called him all kinds of things. I was like, I'm going to get in trouble for putting this video up, because it's never the original video that gets in trouble. It's me. That's how I get in trouble for other people's content. Isn't that crazy? It's crazy, huh? But yeah, I'm always surprised how hard Kyle goes. Damn. And here's the thing too. I wonder if something like that we haven't heard of happened between Kyle and Rogan, something, because he is seething with hate for him. And I think that Abby Martin, that other journalist or something, I think she hates him too now. It's crazy. Rogan's got to be really devious behind the scenes, because there's some people with some hate. And we saw Leslie Jones, she had crazy hate for Tony Hinchcliffe. They got to be acting somewhat crazy. Someone please step forward, make a YouTube about it, about your experience, whatever you want, and then tag me. Please. This question is burning me up. What, there's something darker behind the scenes, right? And I'm not putting on my tinfoil hat. I always wear a yellow hat. Thank you. There is something behind the scenes that we just don't know about. Something dark. Something darker. These guys are inflicting some serious wounds that just the response from these people that have these wounds from the Rogan sphere is just gushing with hate towards them. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments. Peace. I just wanted to play something if you made it this far, because so much of what I focus on is bad comedy. And I think the reason it annoys a lot of people, or maybe just me, is because of the system of entertainment, because of the machine that grooms stars, that grooms basically mediocrity for their maximum profit. There's so many people that get overlooked. And this song came out on Veterans Day, and I watched it. And it's sad, but the way she sings it and her voice is incredible. And I just want to show you somebody who's overlooked. There it is, Christina Miller Music. And I'm just going to play the song. It'll be the end of this episode. Have a good one.
When the letter said a soldier's coming home.